Good morning, my friends. Today, it's another cloudy, gray day. It's been sort of a theme lately this past week. Just every day's sort of been at like the same sort of weather pattern. Um, so last night I went to a Halloween party. It was pretty nice. Pretty nice seeing my friends and whatnot. You know, there was some good drinks, good times, good music, and yeah, like I said yesterday, I was sort of hoping that it would be sort of spooky weather more in the nighttime, which I was glad because I walked back home and it was very foggy. There was sort of like this mist hanging over like the streets, and it was very quiet at night, so it had this nice spooky atmosphere, which I was happy about, especially on a night like Halloween. So today, I'm going to talk about a little bit of a thing that I've sort of been thinking about lately, which is the concept of infinity, right? Infinity is sort of an arbitrary concept to describe something that's endless, so to speak, right? It's the largest possible thing. Well, actually, it's not possible. It's impossible. It's impossible to even imagine what infinity actually is. And to me, that's a direct result of the fact that we live in an infinite universe, so to speak. We live in a universe where the possibility of combination and events are infinite in scope. And we sort of think about things in the concept of how, let's say, the Big Bang happened, right? We had nothing beforehand, and then all of a sudden everything existed, right? In this weird sort of cosmic explosion. And to me, this is a very baffling experience to think about because it doesn't make sense on a logical aspect where you can have absolutely nothing and then all of a sudden have something, right? And this is where I'm talking about the concept of infinity, in which I think the concept of zero and the concept of infinity are actually two of the exact same things. And I'm going to explain that because if you do just simple mathematics, right, if you replace like a simple mathematical equation with zero and infinity, replace the two, the answers are ultimately going to be the same. They're interchangeable, right? So let's say you take 2 times 0, it's going to be 0, right? If you take 2 times infinity, it's going to be infinity. It's the same thing. They equal each other out. Now, if you take 1 divided by 0, you get error because it's not physically possible to do that. Same thing if you divide 1 by infinity. It's the same exact thing. You're going to get only so close to 0, but you'll never actually get there. And if you divide something by 0, it's basically just going all over the place. You basically get an infinite number, so to speak. So even in mathematical equations, at least to what I'm understanding, is that infinity and 0 are sort of on the same level in terms of concepts, right? Which is weird to think about, but it makes sense if we are to understand that we live in an infinite universe, that infinity comes from 0 in the same regard. That the Big Bang, which created, let's say, infinity, so to speak, came from 0, came from absolute nothingness, not necessarily an empty void, because an empty void in its essence is something. It's not infinite as a void. Emptiness is infinite because it is not really a part of something specific. Something specific has a number to it. We have 9 planets in the solar system. If we say we have infinite planets, it's basically like saying we have no planets at all. If I guess that doesn't make sense, really, but that's sort of how I like to see it. And that's why we sort of live in a paradoxical universe, which I guess to some philosophers and scientists would disregard as an opinion because it is a paradox in and of itself. But that's, to me, the reality of our existence. If we are to account for the Big Bang as being a legitimate theory, then we have to acknowledge the fact that our entire existence is a paradox in and of itself. And if we think about the concept of 0 to infinity, which are two of the same things, basically, we are essentially living in the middle ground of these two concepts, right? To which something can exist. Something can exist from nothing because it's created infinity, which is a weird thing to think about. So if we think about infinity also in time, there are infinite scenarios that we can go through, right? There are infinite number of things I can do when I wake up in the morning. There's like a certain way I can get out of bed in the morning. I can choose to drink a glass of water. I can choose not to. I can choose to eat a piece of cheese. I can choose to go outside and walk around a little bit. I can choose to buy a ticket to Cambodia and go there for a little bit. There's infinite number of things I can supposedly choose to do, but I only do one thing, right? And this is where we get into the singularity aspect, where that's where the middle ground between infinity and zero actually begins, is with one. It's the singularity, which is, even though there are infinite possibilities as to what I can do when I wake up, there is only really one path that I'm taking. The possibilities, however, exist in the abstract realm of not in the physical realm. The physical realm is a singularity, so to speak. Let's think of it that way. It's a singular pathway that is going in one direction only, and that's, if we think about the dimension of time, we can't control time. We can sort of experience time slowly if we take drugs, or if we go to another dimension and there's like different gravity and time is affected there. But at the essence, there's no place in the universe that we know of where time is actually going backwards or time is actually fully stopped. It's always going forward, right? It's always going in one direction, which is the singularity concept is going towards infinity to sort of equal itself out mathematically. If we were to believe that zero and infinity are the same thing, you have this number, this plurality of going through until we reach infinity, which is ultimately emptiness, so to speak, which is more of a Buddhist concept and also a Hindu concept if you want to go there. But Hindu is more based around the self, which I think is more related to the singularity, which is also what Western philosophy tends to focus on, which is that we are part of the essence, which is like the one, or whatever you want to call it, right? We all come from one thing, which is, if we are to think of it like that, then then zero or infinity as concepts could not possibly exist, but they do exist, so we have to account for them in some possible way, which is to realize that the essence of everything is not one, but it's actually nothing, or simultaneously infinity, which in a Buddhist term would be emptiness, so to speak, right? So we have emptiness as the foundation of everything, and emptiness, as I come to understand it, is not necessarily an empty void. It's sort of this weird state where nothing and everything exists at the same time, which is a paradox in and of itself, because it's beyond our realm of understanding. It's like if we tell ourselves, imagine what nothing looks like, well then first thing you'll probably think of is just like blackness, just darkness, but even that in of itself is something, so to speak, right? We can perceive darkness as being something because it's a singularity, it's a singular concept. We have to think of things beyond the singular concept, which is what we can actually do because we exist within it. Zero and infinity exist beyond the singular concept of our existence, right? So anyway, these are just things that I've sort of been thinking about, and that's all I really have to say about it. It doesn't really matter that much. We're all going to die anyway, so why bother worrying about those kinds of things? But if you're interested in those kinds of things, they're sort of cool to think about, because they're logically congruent in terms of defining infinity and zero, right? So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I hope you have a wonderful day.